Welcome to the Powercat Podcast, presented by Fridge Wholesale Liquor. Now let's go to the rolling Flint Hills, home of the Cats and Dogs Studio. Here's your host, Tim Fitzgerald.
Welcome to another edition of the Powercat Podcast. This is the basketball edition. You're going to get two of these this week because we got spring football opening up on campus, and we also have basketball. And of course, we're going to discuss the miserable performance by the Kansas State Wildcats on Tuesday night in Lawrence. And these two guys with me were at that game, Zach Carlson and Ryan Gilbert. Got to enjoy a delicious pregame meal and then cover a less than delicious game. Was the pregame meal, Zach said, was really good. Like he said, he loves peas, and he's glad he had I think he called it prison loaf. And you know what? Okay. That's what you deserve, Gills. Prison loaf.
I miss Bill Self pasta. I was banking on that. But as you know, so we went to Quick Trip before and we hedged it a little bit.
We hedged the meal.
In case the meal wasn't Bill Self pasta, and it wasn't. So It worked out.
Well, that's good. I'm glad. Cheater. An absolute cheater. We're sponsored by the Fridge Wholesale Liquor. Make sure you stop into the Fridge whenever you're in town. I don't know when that'll be. Saturday, maybe? Are you coming to town Saturday? You need to. Look, I know this basketball season hasn't gone as planned, but as Jerome Tang says, show up for your team and show them the love. So Saturday, 1 p.m., into the regular season against Iowa State, a really good Iowa State team. And I'll be filming things from a number of angles during the timeouts because I missed that discussion. We've got a whole nother discussion with Bill Self. I don't even understand this one. Do we get a question about it?
No, you can talk about it.
So he claims Jerome Tang did a drive-by. I don't know. Yeah, most losing coaches do that. I don't know. Is he saying he didn't shake his hand? Because I don't think TV caught an angle of them actually shaking hands, but Jerome Tang's in the line shaking hands. He shakes players' hands. Now, I'm not sure what's going on here. This feels like a Rodney Terry horns down thing. The coach just finds something to be pissed off about after the game for some reason. We never do that. And then we see film of the exact same thing. Bill Self couldn't have gone faster through the handshake line in Manhattan when they lost. What the hell are we doing here with these post-game press conferences that bring this stuff up? I'm not even sure. I'll just say this. If Bill Self needs this to rev up his crowd and make them forget that this has been a bad season by their measurement. They certainly are better than Kansas State. But I guess okay, if that's what your fans need to get a little steam. I'm not sure. Do you think this is going to fire a team up going to Houston? I don't think that's going to solve what Houston brings to the table. I'm a little confused by it all. And Rodney Terry was quickly proven also that his team celebrates and isn't exactly great sports, throwing horns up at people whenever they can. It's been a weird year in Big 12 basketball, going all the way back to the filming incident. I did an Iowa State podcast this week, and we had to talk about the filming incident because they still talk about it, and I don't know why. I mean, I know they wanted to bring it up with me, but fans don't believe me when I say in Manhattan, this was dead in 2 days. Didn't even worry about it 1 second after, Jerome Tang said he wasn't going to talk about it. He simply asked TJ to look into it, and then it blew up. We're sponsored by the Fridge. Again, you're coming to town Saturday. Stop into the Fridge. Don't drink while driving, but take the Fridge liquor beer home and enjoy it there after the game. I don't know why you need to do that. Just chug it all in the parking lot before the Cats game against the Cyclones. But thanks to the Fridge for their longtime sponsorship. Ryan Gilbert, you look fantastic today in your Aggieville studio.
Thanks. I appreciate that. Is that it? Is that all I have to say?
Yeah, that's it.
Thank you.
And Zach's here with me in his hoodie and ball cap. Once again, possibly shoplifting. No. Yep. He's hiding from the cameras. Let's get going with your questions from Wabash Station. It's going to be a short one. For some reason, basketball isn't a hot topic right now. Zach Carlson.
I wrote this question to start us off since we didn't have very many. When did it all go wrong for K-State this season?
When they didn't get Max Asmus.
Yeah, that early. Because they never found a true point. I mean, that was the idea, was he was going to run the point and Tyler would be the two, and they'd do what they do. The irony being,
A. Smith went to a very talented Texas team, and yeah, they're going to get in the NCAA tournament. Not disputing that, but there's not that big a gap between these two teams. I mean, it just isn't. So I do wonder what happens if he's here. I wonder if the president doesn't go off the deep end with something I still don't understand, because the more I learn, the more I can't make sense of it. And then, of course, Quez Glover, who probably would never have been here if Max A. Smith signed, but then that goes south. So, yeah, it's just been one of those years. And you know what? When you have that kind of year in year two, things go off the rails a little bit. And just go look down the road. Missouri offered, I believe, in SEC play this year after a good first season under a coach. So, you know what happens, and it's happened at K-State. But, yeah, I think this season went off the rails when they did not find a true veteran point guard through the transfer portal, and everything has been fed off of that, not having a true ball handler to handle things.
The low-hanging fruit is the Naquan Tomlin. Once he got dismissed, I mean, that's kind of the obvious answer here. But, guys, I really think that things went wrong when Kansas State made the Elite Eight last year, okay? That standard was set so high for this program. And Marquise Noel and Keontae Johnson, those guys are gone. They're irreplaceable. They are superstars, and that's not something to use lightly. Those guys were superstars. And I don't care if they get A. Smith. You know, I don't care if Tyler Perry lives up to his best, shooter in America expectation. If he's been like that the whole year, even if Naquan Tomlin's here, they might flirt with the, Sweet 16, Elite Eight. I'm not saying they couldn't do that, but it's unreasonable to expect that, year in and year out for Jerome Tang. Okay. That's kind of, obviously that's what they want. That's what they expect of themselves. But when you lose those two superstars, I mean, guys, if Cam Carter would just revert back to his role, to be the Elite Eight role he had on that team last year, just be a role player, be that glue guy. I'm not going to say K-State beats KU and Allen or anything like that, but he has been awful. And Fitz, you mentioned it, like Cam's a good kid. We love him. Good. He's awesome.
Oh,
but he's been awful, and he's been a negative. It almost seems every time he touches the ball, if he starts dribbling, bad things are going to happen. He made one field goal against KU on Tuesday. So, that's the biggest thing. Back to my main point, though. I think the expectations coming into the year, even with Naquan Tomlin, Quez Glover plays, he's healthy. I still think that's I don't want to say it's unreasonable, but after year one, every year isn't going to be like that. It's just not.
Agreed.
I'm surprised that both of you picked dates before Halloween last year. That was the Naquan Tomlin weekend. But I'm going to go a lot more recent. I'm going to say the loss at Texas Tech. Losing that game and the way they lost it, they were up fairly big. They blew it at the end. And I think that it would have been their third win in a row to start Big 12 play again. And I think that the season kind of turned there. They had enough confidence, going in. I think with those two wins against UCF and West Virginia, I think if they get that third win, I think that kind of forgives their struggles in December, those 3 straight overtime wins. Maybe they feel like they can prove themselves and they have enough momentum going forward. Because I think they probably, if they win that game, I think they probably win a couple of those closer games down the stretch. And no, I don't think this team's an Elite Eight team by any stretch of the imagination if they win that game, but they're at least firmly in the tournament if they beat Texas Tech, say they beat TCU. Those two games, you can probably flip the result. And the outlook on this season is a lot better than what it ended up being. But I think, you lose that game and then you kind of begin this slide at Iowa State and just, you lose through January and February, and you couldn't resuscitate yourselves like last season because they had like I talked about probably a month ago, they had a similar stretch last year where they struggled for a time, but they were able to get out of it, and Casey just couldn't do that this season.
Agreed.
Yeah, Zach, we were talking about that last night on the way back to Manhattan, right? Like the resume, if you pick up that one win against Texas Tech, K-State's still going to be on the outside looking in, but for the morale, for the confidence of your team to be 3-0 going into the thick of conference play, I agree. I agree with all of you guys. Like, I'm not debating that. Like, you were right, Fitz. You're right, Zach. I think we're all right here.
Yeah.
There's so many different things that you can point towards for this season kind of going off the rails.
I don't want to say it was luck what happened last year, but there is a sense of things went in a positive manner last year. I mean, getting Keontae Johnson late in the process is unbelievable. And this year it's been the opposite. Things haven't gone as they would hope. And the great thing now with the transfer portal is next year's a new year. They're going to get to reinvent their team again. And we'll see if they do a good job with that, because I think they realize now, at least I hope, that it isn't just about how many minutes you've played. It's about what you bring to the program, what you bring to the table, what you offer. And I hope with the transfer portal, they focus in a little bit more on well-rounded skill sets and, specific things. Does this guy create? Does he pass? If he's a point guard, does he get to the free throw line and make those? Does he finish at the rim? I don't think they did, a full circle of that. And A. Smith would have solved so many problems. Gives you another dynamic scorer, a true point guard, and Tyler Perry moves off the ball. And there you go. That's where I think it went wrong. And then I still can't explain the Halloween horrors of the university president and what he did and what he said. And I'm still intrigued to see what happens with that, because I think a lawsuit might come down the pike at some point here.
You guys excited for that 30 for 30?
No. No. Is there going to be one? I'd love it.
Gotta be.
I think K-State could have its own 30 for 30 series because I'm amazed. I brought up on Twitter as a reply the failed terrorist attack at the OU K-State football game, and how many people around this conference have no idea. I just did that Iowa State podcast, and they asked me to share that story because they had no idea, and they both played at Iowa State. So it's interesting.
Next question is from M0354. What is your evaluation of the 5-out offense, both conceptually and as K-State has applied it? How much did that figure in any struggles this year?
Again, without Naquan Tomlin, I don't want to say it was centrically revolving around him, but that was a big reason why. When you have a guy that's so big, I forget how tall Naquan Tomlin was,
6'9",
but
10.
Yeah, he played though like a guard. He could dribble, he could shoot from beyond the arc, and so. Obviously David Gasson, there's guys on this roster, 100% Arthur Kaluma, that it wasn't just Naquan Tomlin. So I don't want to put too much of an evaluation on it just for that reason without Naquan Tomlin. I mean, the offense is what it is, right? You're going to go through those growing pains late December, early November, and you're going to be good to go no matter what that offense, may be. And so the issues for this team, the lack of effort against Kansas on Tuesday, the turnovers, the careless mistakes, the poor fundamentals. I'm putting that their offensive struggles, I'm putting that towards the bottom of the list.
Okay. Interesting.
I don't have anything to weigh in on schemes of basketball.
Yeah, I think any offense is predicated on the tools. K-State running its football offense with Colin Klein as opposed to someone else, it just looks different. It's the same offense, and it changes what you can and can't do. But I think it's clear this offense is based a little bit more on having some dudes that can just hoop, and they didn't have enough of that. Period.
Last question of the first half from Adam K63. Is it time to let the young players spread their wings and get more playing time?
Again, Gills, I want to hear you on this.
Yeah, 100%, man. Fitz was the post-game talk, right? We outlined the numbers, the minutes, the points, all that stuff from Jones, Ames, and Rich. And, Tyler Perry, I'm not going to be too critical of him. I think KU was they were honing in on Perry after he scored 26 against them in Bramlage. But Cam Carter, I outlined it just a minute ago. Perry got no help. Kaluma couldn't score, like we just talked about, the 5-out offense, they're struggling to create their own points, right? In the non-conference play, you saw these guys being able to go out and against these mid-major teams, or even, before the scouting reports were on them, before they were figured out, so to speak, right? They could score. Now they just can't score. And so I think, but back to the point here, Jones hit a couple 3-pointers, right? Rich had a powerful dunk. Day Ames has obviously been starting for the last month or so, right? But again, we've said this 1,000 times. Perry, Kaluma, Carter, they're going to turn the ball over. if you're so concerned about that, then why would it matter if Jones or Rich turns it over? So, I mean, I don't want to just say that the season's washed, play the freshman, start the freshman. You don't want to have that loser mentality, especially on senior night when you want to honor those seniors, right? You want to go out with class and play your hardest. Now, I'm sure K-State, we'll see what happens, right? We'll see what happens. But yeah, I mean, Rich played fine. They put him in, Finister wasn't really in. I think he played a little bit late, right? But he wasn't really in for any time that mattered. Rich checked in probably the earliest he had checked in conference play, if I'm not mistaken. And so I don't know if that was a KJ Adams thing, schematically. I don't know if that was because Gasson had a few fouls. I don't know, but I love to see it. I dig it, right? I want to see more of that. I think it might be too little too late now, but especially when you look at the future of your program. Okay, do you want to go out and grab a fourth-year veteran point guard, or do you want to have Day Ames be the starter next year, right? You got to look at things in a bigger picture.
I'm a little frustrated by their lack of use of these guys through the second half of the season. And I understand why. I mean, Jerome Tang is a defense-first coach, which most coaches are. If you can't play adequate defense, you don't typically step on the court. But for me, it becomes kind of a puzzle where you got to figure out which pieces get you to the best picture. And the second Cam Carter, within a 2-minute stretch to open the second half, missed 4 shots. He took 4 shots in the first 2 minutes of the half, missed them all, and also had a turnover. Tyler Perry also missed a shot in there. As much as you love Cam and what he does on defense, you're down by double digits on the road, and one of your best players is not checked in mentally or, skill-wise. To the bench.
Well, look at
RJ, go play. Go play. You can't be worse.
Remember the first 2 minutes into the game, it was a lane violation on Cam Carter, right?
Yeah, he fell into the lane.
You just gave KU a free point. It's just, and that was the entire night for Carter.
I don't understand what's going on.
I really don't.
There's got to be something else going on with him, because he just doesn't look like he's in the game mentally.
Mm-hmm. I think after he missed a shot or made some sort of mistake, he just kind of went put his, I guess. So for those that aren't, oh boy, now we got a dog attack.
Yeah,
for those that aren't,
someone had the gall to close a car door outside, and that's not acceptable, man.
Mr. UPS guy here.
Oh, that might be. I got deliveries coming.
But anyways, you saw Cam put his hands in his face and just kind of, the body language, I think, was poor, right? And that's probably why Jerome Tang, in that post-game press conference, okay, I think it was Arnie that asked him about Will McNair, 17 points, there's maybe a positive from this game. Daphne, I'm speaking here, okay? Or is it dude? Who's barking?
It's Daphne.
Oh, it's always Daphne, of course. And Jerome Tang, instead of, complimenting McNair, just went ahead and said that K-State had 2 offensive rebounds, and that's not going to cut it in the Big 12. And that's a direct result of a lack of effort in his eyes, right? And so there's back to Cam Carter. I've lost my train of thought now. Daphne,
I'm sorry,
me, but
I know.
Yeah, Carter's they all got to be better.
I'm just so frustrated by it because I like Cam so much, but
sure,
God, he's been bad. Maybe good on defense. I mean, coaches see defense a lot different sometimes than fans. The coaches know exactly the rotations and the helps and all that stuff that they're supposed to be doing. But when he's turning the ball over that many times, live ball turnovers often, when he can't efficiently dribble and he's a guard, I don't know why he's on the court. I just don't. Especially, I still need to get an explanation why Michaela Bridge hasn't been playing. I don't understand. If someone gets into foul trouble, tell the kid go out there and bust ass for 2 minutes. Just play your nuts off for 2 minutes. Because energy is something this team needs. And I feel like once he put those freshmen on there and they were actually playing hard, not doing things right, not running things a perfect way, but playing with heart and effort that honestly I didn't see from a lot of the other guys. I thought Will McNair showed up to battle in the paint. Still drives me crazy by how he hogs the ball and doesn't pass out very often unless he absolutely has to, and then it often leads to disaster. But I thought the rest of the team just wasn't invested. So put guys on the court that are invested.
Yeah.
I don't think it's complicated. This is one thing I don't quite understand what Jerome Tang's doing here. I know practice is important, but when they go on the court in a game and are mailing it in or aren't focused, get them off the court. I don't care if they had a great week of practice. You don't lose games because they were good in practice or bad in practice. At the end of the day, you got to take care of your business in practice. I get that. But in the heart of a game, put the players out there that are going to help you win that game.
And so, go ahead, Zach. Go ahead, buddy.
Largely, they have played 7 guys throughout conference play, right? Mm-hmm. That's been the rotation. Where are the minutes that Quez Glover and Naquan Tomlin would have played? Surely they would have had a 9-man rotation. So if you think about the plan going into what the season was supposed to be with the number of guys that were good and good enough to play a lot of minutes, I don't see how it makes sense to just stick with, well, these are the best 7 guys we have on the team. This is the best chance we have to make the NCAA tournament. I mean, it's insane to think that you have this bench. You have these young guys like Caleb Rich that, should be playing a lot of minutes. They're kind of exciting, but for whatever reason, is just not good enough to fill in that gap. I mean, we've known what this season has been for probably about a month now. And at a certain point, you probably should have started playing the young guys a lot more than what you've been. But it doesn't make sense to me just sticking with the 7 guys, especially considering they switched the starting lineup.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, all 7 guys that basically play have started at some point this season. I mean, expecting a basketball team in the Big 12 Conference to play 18 games with 7 guys playing 85% of the minutes, it's insane. I don't know the stat off the top of my head, but I would, if you went and looked it up, I would be surprised if there was 7 guys on every team playing 85% of the minutes.
You know me, Gills. I'm an accomplished baker. Yeah, you know that, right?
No.
Okay. Well, if you're making a cake and you use the same 7 ingredients every time you make the cake, it doesn't matter what order you put them in the bowl, and the cake tastes like crap. Maybe add something different to the recipe, like a little salt, because I think Caleb Rich can get salty out there. A little pepper from RJ. I don't know why you put pepper in a cake, but I'm down this metaphor road now. I'm invested in it. And of course, adding more in day, which would be, of course, the paprika, which is delicious in the cake. More of that. I'm very frustrated. I just really am. But let's call it a half and move to a break, and we'll come back.
Whoa. Are you trying to silence me?
No, I'm trying to get this podcast done.
We're trying to be done.
Okay, fine. I'll
go ahead.
Okay. I got 2 things written down, guys. Number 1, Fitz, you mentioned this, but just to hammer this home, with the freshmen, the turnovers that they're gonna make, right, are not the same to a Cam Carter turnover, right? Cam Carter is just fumbling the ball off his foot or making a bad pass, poor decision, right? RJ Jones might be in the wrong place. Caleb Rich might go up and think he can draw contact, but it wasn't there, and he fumbles the ball away, right? They're apples and oranges when you look at the turnovers that these freshmen are going to make, and that's why, again, I think you should go with them. Number 2, real quick, Jerome Tang, I just wanted to point this out. This was, I think, the first press conference that I can ever remember from him where he didn't accept blame for the loss. He didn't take the coaching staff. This is on us. He said it was on the players. This was on the effort of the players.
I agree.
You can go to break now.
I was happy he said that.
Yeah.
Hold them accountable. I think sometimes he's too easy on them, and I understand that's the kind of guy he is. But once in a while, holding someone publicly accountable when the mistakes continue to happen is it. And ironically, the mistakes weren't as dramatic last night or Tuesday night against Kansas. They only had 11 turnovers, but those freshmen that played like 48 combined minutes had one turnover. And so maybe they had defensive breakdowns. Maybe that helped KU score a bunch of points. I don't know. But if you're losing, lose young, period. Let's go to break. We'll come back on the other side with more of your questions from Wabash Station.
We'll be right back after these messages from our sponsors.
Please visit the Fridge Wholesale Liquor, located at the corner of Claflin and Westport Road in Manhattan, Kansas.
Welcome back to the show. Let's return to the Cats and Dogs studio.
Welcome back to the Powercat Podcast. Fitz, Zach, and Gills gathered on an early Wednesday afternoon after a Tuesday night loss by Kansas State. I believe you're watching this later. I don't know when I'm putting it up, Zach. I gotta record the Big 12 Insiders here in 25 minutes, and then I got to do another podcast with talk on spring football with Cole and Wally. I'm a busy man. This studio might catch fire. The neon might melt.
Probably needs to go up today if we're putting football up after tonight. I don't know.
He's always right.
Yeah.
We're sponsored by the Fridge. They're always right. Go to the Fridge. As I stare into the camera, this is lost on the podcast listeners, but the viewers, go to the Fridge. Fridge. On with your questions from Wabash Station. I apologize for terrifying anyone.
From CFID, is Day Ames the solution at point guard next year, or do they need a starting point guard in the transfer portal?
Gills, this is an interesting question in the fact that David Castillo is more of a true point guard even than Day. I mean, he's just kind of got that. He's a freshman and Max Asmus is the senior, but that's the kind of guy he is. Undersized, scoring point guard that understands how to create. But we know Jerome Tang and his love of veteran guards. Do they still go out into the transfer portal despite Day and Castillo and get a veteran point guard?
I like what you mentioned, Jerome Tang's love for veteran guards, right? Marquise Noel was a veteran guard this season. Day Ames is a freshman. There's been a much shorter leash on him, right? So
yeah, got to teach him.
Yeah, I don't know. Was the question, what will they do? What do we want them to do? I'm sorry.
Is Day Ames the solution, or do they need somebody from the portal?
No, I think Day Ames and Castillo, both of them playing combined 40 minutes is good. It's going to be good enough, in my opinion, running the point guard. And I've mentioned this. You don't want to hurt their long-term growth potential, all that stuff, right? You want them to learn and make those mistakes when they're younger. Now, obviously, for next season, K-State's maybe going to win a game or two if they have a guy like Max Asmus or someone of that caliber with the experience. But year or two down the line, you're not having those younger players go through the fire of playing in the Big 12 and stuff like that. So I think K-State's point guard is on its roster right now. And, obviously the focus right now is on this season. But for next season, I think David Castillo certainly can help complement them there. I know RJ Jones is capable of doing that as well. And so I would not try to, make it we've got to go out and grab a point guard if we're Jerome Tang and the staff. Okay, if somebody, falls in our lap or somebody we like, if I'm Jerome Tang, I'm not going to fill it by, need at point guard. Okay, if we get someone that's available who we like, we want to bring in, great, but I'm not going to force things and try to bring in a guy to fix everything, because I think, K-State's got enough next year to hold its own at the point guard spot.
Fair enough. I'm in.
Nothing.
No, you agree?
No, I think he's at the point now where you don't want to stunt the growth of your young guys or force them into the portal. And I think after this season, the thought of going through a season with some young players and bringing some dudes, hopefully Kaluma's back, bring in another dude for sure. This is a big storyline. How many will go into the portal? How many scholarships will they have left? Who will be pushed into the portal and who will leave in the portal? So I don't know how many players are going to have to recruit. We don't know what Quez Glover's situation is. Maybe he's back, and maybe he's the not veteran point guard, but the veteran guard you want to accompany those young guys and help them. So we need to know what the roster makeup is going to be, not specific players, but how many pieces can they add? And I'm perfectly at home with letting the young guys learn. That might be what next season's about. The goal here is to have veteran guards of your own making. And you need to get to that so that these guys mature and there's another wave of young guys behind them, not just guards, players. You need to get back to hoping that you can recruit and develop and turn them into great players and not just reinvent your roster every year.
Next question is from ContraCat. With only one freshman recruit inbound for next season. Do you expect a significant roster overhaul?
Fitz, you are so lazy today. You're putting everything on me, man.
Yeah.
Goodness gracious! But
You're the star.
I don't think there's going to be. You've got this freshman class, and David Castillo is going to be next year the freshman. So Dorian Finister is technically a redshirt freshman. I don't know who's going to leave, who's going to stay. I don't know if people are going to be unhappy with minutes or lack thereof. Like, we don't want to speculate here, but no, I think that you've got the building blocks here. You want to get old and you want to stay old, right? So that's the key to winning basketball in the Big 12 Conference. So I think K-State's the foundation's here, right? If Cam Carter wants to come back, if Arthur Kaluma wants to come back, right? You don't have to make wholesale changes to your roster. I know I mentioned this a little bit, guys, I don't know if it was this show or whatever, but you add in a Desi Sills, okay? Plug him here. Bebe, put him there for this reason, that reason, right? Tyke Green for this reason, okay? I think that's what I would like to see K-State do, rather than bring in some superstar guy, bring him in for a year. I know I've said this like 3 times, guys, but you're just not helping the development of the younger players when they don't get the opportunity to play. Just think if you're RJ Jones, like, how hard would that be to get into a groove when you're only getting a few minutes here and a few minutes there?
Really tough.
Rich, I mean, he played one special teams play against Cincinnati. Before that, he had played like a month or so, right? And you get thrown into the fire in the loudest indoor arena in the world. Like, I love that they went to Caleb Rich, but come on, man. Like, if he's going to make a mistake, you can't blame him. He's not going to be really prepared for this opportunity because you haven't given him the opportunity to prepare for the opportunity. Does that make sense?
Yes, it was a good opportunity to say opportunity. I don't know. Go ahead.
I think that the way the season has gone, it's been a frustrating season. K-State's going to finish probably in the bottom 4, unless there's a miracle that happens on Saturday.
Well, if they win, they're not in the bottom 4.
Okay.
Thanks to Cincinnati.
They control their own destiny.
Or
to stay out of the first day.
The miracle was West Virginia beating Cincinnati on Saturday. I just think that there's probably a lot of frustrations on this roster, and I don't want to call the guys quitters, but I feel like this season, if you're a K-State player that's not getting a lot of minutes, you'd probably have a pretty bad taste in your mouth, especially considering just knowing how limited the guys are. 7 guys playing. There's minutes out there that you can probably think in your head that you can make K-State better if you're sitting on that bench down the road, like Caleb Rich or Dorian Finister. Like, I don't know if those are going to be the guys. There could definitely be some guys, that are starting or, whatever else that want to find a new home for next year. But I don't think that – I think there's going to be a little more turnover than maybe both of you might anticipate. I think that I would not be surprised if K-State brought in 5 transfer guys next year because they had the spots.
This is a very interesting question for me. How much upheaval do they have on this roster? Because is Gasson done for sure? Is this it?
He got a COVID year.
That's what I thought. McNair has a year, doesn't he?
I'm pretty sure this is it for McNair.
This is it? I was thinking he had COVID or something. I don't know. It's gotten so confusing. I can't wait for the COVID years to be done. There's going to be some movement. I've had people ask me, so you want Carter to transfer? I absolutely do not want Cam Carter to transfer. I think he's could be an incredible player. I would like Cam Carter to spend his offseason working on basic skills. Young man, if you want to have a career beyond the Big 12 or college basketball, you got to be able to handle the ball better. You got to start using your palm and your fingertips to handle the ball. I can't even tell you how many photos I see of Cam Carter come across the feed, and we have Getty and USA Today are our 2 outside photo services, and Kansas State we use a lot of. How many times when he's dribbling, the ball is on the heel of his hand? And I'm like, that's what you do when you don't have control of the ball. So I want Cam just to lock in on dribbling and passing. Quit being so damn lazy with passes. That little shuttle throw underhand thing, that dramatic overhand rifle it across the court. Dude, you're not prepared to do that. You haven't built up your skill set to earn the right to do those things. because you can't pass a ball with two hands and hit someone in a position to do something with it. And now you're trying to get fancy. Don't get fancy, man. Let's get back to basics.
Well, Fitz, doesn't that fall on the coaching staff, though, for allowing
Absolutely.
that same thing to happen over and over and over again and not doing anything about it, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, but if they subbed him off, that means they'd have to put in a player that they don't want to play. I mean,
I know. It's a it's a mess. I will be very intrigued to see how many openings they have.
With the transfer portal, if you do want to sort of push guys out, so to speak, you've got to convert, okay? I know last year they thought they were going to have Naquan Tomlin, and they certainly expected some more wings to come in. But look at Ish Massoud. He's playing on a Georgetown team that's won 2 games in the Big East. I mean, this team, I'm not going to say they're going to be much better with Ish Massoud, but he would have played. Like, he would have played meaningful minutes for this team. At the time of, like, this time last year, Ish Massoud, we love you, man. We really do. No bad blood, but we can't promise you minutes. And so they mutually agreed to go separate ways. But I mean, that's because K-State thought they were going to have a lot better. They thought they were going to do a lot better than they did in the portal. They didn't convert. And so if you're going to push guys out, you got to do a better job in the portal than you did last year. There's no other way around that.
Bingo.
The good news is they should theoretically have a head start this year on the portal.
True.
I'm all in on that. That's one of the reasons why I don't think the staff should cry too much if they don't get in an IT bid or they're one and done.
Yeah.
Just move on. Get this over with and move on. I know you don't want to turn down an IT bid. If the kids want to play, you play. But let's be realistic here. You need to rebuild.
Last question of the podcast from El Camino Cat. Should we as fans expect a better haul out of next year's portal class than we got this year with Kaluma, Perry, McNair, and Glover?
I think if you want to blame the NIL, and maybe that was what did them in a couple quarters, I think that's been mostly solved. I think in the basketball space, Kansas State will be able to compete. Maybe not with what Kansas paid Hunter Dickinson. And I'm not even familiar with who that was, but there's been rumors of a lot of zeros in that. But you can get the kids you want to compete. They need to get back to just finding guys that want to fight. You might have dudes, but you don't have dogs. I want someone like Michaela Bridge that's a dog, that's going to get after it and not just try to pick a fight, not get upset every time something doesn't go right, to absolutely be determined to get floor burns, to piss off the other team because he's playing so hard. I see other teams doing that to K-State, and that's what they need to fix. I go back to the first movements of the roster under Jerome Tang. And I don't know if it was his doing or if he was told he wasn't going to play, but look at Sultan Miguel and how much he's developed at South Florida. He is now, I haven't looked at the stats recently, but he was hitting around 40% from 3. That kid couldn't hit 10% when he was at K-State, but he's gone to work on his skill set. He didn't dribble it real well, but he was a dog, man. He would get after you and defend you. And I that was one that I'm like, I think you want this guy. And in hindsight, I feel I was exactly right. But again, I don't know. Maybe Sultan like, Manhattan, Kansas isn't my thing. I'm out of here. So he's now in Florida. And, some days I wish I was in Florida. But I can't play. I can't.
I don't think Sultan Miguel wanted anything to do with this.
Yeah.
Staff that's going to make you work hard in practice. And, that just wasn't. Well, I'm not to take a knock at Weber, but this was they're way different coaches, and so I think
Absolutely.
Miguel. I don't think Miguel even showed up to Tang's press conference.
No, he was in the portal before then.
Yeah, Lucas Zubkil. These guys aren't coming back. At least they showed up. Anyways, back to the portal. Okay, you mentioned it, Zach, and something kind of went off in my head when you said Tyler Perry, Will McNair, Arthur Kaluma, Quez Glover. That's a pretty dang solid portal class. It really is. If Cam Carter lives up to his expectations and David Gasson, that's a pretty dang solid starting 5. So yeah, you didn't get that superstar that you may want to get in the portal, but that's pretty solid. And I don't want K-State to have to bring in guys like that. I'll say it for like the 5th time. Let your younger guys get better, mature, give them minutes, bring in solid pieces. And so I don't think K-State, I don't think you should want K-State to have as good of a class in the portal this year. That's just if you have Arthur Kaluma and Cam Carter staying, if the certain key pieces are staying, I'm not saying any of these guys I'm not at all saying that any of these guys were bad locker room guys for the culture, nothing like that. But when you do bring in guys from the outside, you run that risk. And so, when you're trying to build momentum after a poor season that we've gone through this year, right? Okay, in the offseason, you bring in some guys, but you don't want to try to just completely reinvent the wheel, right?
Yeah, no, you're right. I don't know, man. The portal's so hit and miss. It's you're literally throwing things together again, making a cake and just throwing ingredients in the bowl. And if you don't get it right, the cake goes bad, and this hasn't gone right. And of course, as we've mentioned, this wasn't all portal. This was outside forces in some parts.
Yeah.
But it's added up to this. And as a head coach, you're accountable for that. But I'll say this, coming back to this, I'm glad Jerome Tang said what he said. He apologized to fans on radio. I don't know if he did that in postgame. He was very clear. Yeah. This isn't what we're out here to do. And I think at times he's been too soft for his kids. What? There's that.
Sounds like
Did you guys hear that?
Yeah.
Sounds like an airplane lavatory flushing.
I have no idea. It does actually. Gills, are you in an airplane again? You're in the airplane lavatory. Your little desk area is about that size.
Yeah, true.
But K-State's got to do better. The players got to play better. This is almost like a contractual agreement. The fans will cheer their face off if you play your ass off. And let's see if that happens on Saturday.
Quick counterpoint to Gills.
Oh, yeah. That doesn't have to be quick.
There's only one freshman recruit, like we talked about in the last question. There's only one incoming guy right now so far. So,
okay.
I know you want, to build up your own guys. You only have one guy.
Okay.
You've got to be better next year. And hopefully you can keep Kaluma and you have some other parts from this season that, you can hang on to. You're not wholesale changes between Kaluma, Perry, McNair, Glover. Like theoretically, you should have two of them, hopefully. But I think you absolutely have to go to the transfer portal, get better guys, and hopefully the NIL problem that was perceived as last year is fixed. Hopefully you can compete. Hopefully that ceiling that K-State kind of puts on themselves for the type of guy they want to bring in maybe raises a little bit. But I think you absolutely have to be better in the portal next year because you're only bringing in one freshman. Granted, one of the best freshmen, exciting freshmen to come to K-State in probably the last decade. But I think you still need some support pieces, with the guaranteed departures of Perry and others.
I love that Gills raise his hand. Me next. It's funny because Zach doesn't have him. I mean, Zach's camera's over here on my side monitor over here. And so he can't see Gills. Gills can't see me putting up with Daphne. And
I see her.
Gills talk.
Anyways, real quick, because I know we're short on time, but Zach, to counterpoint your counterpoint to my point.
Counterpointing. Pointing
sure.
Counter.
Cam Carter, get guys like that where they didn't play much at their previous school. Jarrell Colbert, who was maybe a little bit raw. You can get those guys in the transfer portal that you can still like to bring in and develop. These coaches have hundreds of relationships with guys, whether that be from Texas or their roots, Louisiana, wherever that may be, right? Like there's going to be guys out there that don't have to be somebody like Arthur Kaluma, who's going to come in and be a starter in the first year, right? So you can still, obviously they missed out on Pat Gongba and they only have one signee in this next upcoming class, but you can still get some guys that are younger that you can develop and mold into the players that you want them to be. My last point here, though, on the portal, I would call this maybe the Keontae Johnson paradox, okay? You look back to the first offseason that K-State had, they waited, and Keontae Johnson, kind of fell in their lap, and they, not fell in their lap, but they waited, right? Desi Sills was late. Bebe was late. And this past offseason, I think K-State kind of fell into that a little bit, that let's take our time, let's really be thorough in evaluating these guys and then go from there. Now, I mean, the same thing can probably be said for football recruiting. Wally and Cole would be, better to answer that than me, but I would assume it's the same thing for that. Like, you can't be don't try to just wait. Now, if you don't feel like you need to grab a superstar, that's fine, but I wouldn't sit back and wait. You got to be assertive. You got to be aggressive here in the portal because guys are going to be gone. And especially if you're not playing in the NCAA tournament, you're going to have a head start on those programs that are.
Well said. Well, that's why I keep you around. Right there, Ryan Gilbert. That's why I haven't told you to go away. Well, I have done that. We'll talk to you soon. I'll talk to you tomorrow with another podcast, but just different dudes.
This has been a GoPowerCat.com and Spirit Street production. Please support this show by subscribing to this YouTube channel or follow us on your favorite podcast platform.